Good afternoon, Bahamas, and welcome to the Hit Back. I'm your host, Nahaja Black. It is a beautiful day here in the 242. I got my special guest, my good friend, Stephen A. I was going to say Stephen A. Cecil, do you know who Stephen A is?
No,
No? So you don't follow
no
sports at
idea.
all? You don't follow sports at all?
No,
Okay. Because
no,
I was about to
no.
say my good friend,
That's
Stephen
hockey,
A. Smith, and you don't know who Stephen A. Smith is. So it doesn't even.
hockey player.
Stephen A.
Not
No,
or hockey.
no, no,
No, no.
no. Come on, man. Work with me.
Tennis.
No, not it. Not
Not
even.
tennis.
He's a
No.
broadcaster, sports guy. You're really loud. But you're not him. So I won't hold that against you. Against you, you're not that guy. Yeah, I love you,
No,
man.
no.
Welcome to the Hit
That's
Back,
it.
everybody. It's a beautiful day here in the 242. We are on the heels of big news, breaking news today. We have, of course, we've been waiting for today. We've been waiting for today with bated breath, with anxiety, of course. The Prime Minister has made his decision. We knew that there was something afoot with regard to what was next. And so this is going to be an interesting day with all the news that has come out today. So it's going to be interesting. We got my good friend C.A. Nuri joining us on the show. As always, a good contributor to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. We are streaming live. Of course, we air live on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, the number one station. Is that again? I feel like when I say this, I'm saying somebody else's line, the number one station in the nation. I feel like that's somebody else's line. Is that
No,
somebody
I think
else's
that's
line?
Guardian.
That is
No, that's
Guardian.
Guardian.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay, because it is true. It is the number one station in the nation, just for the record.
yeah.
All right, but okay, good. Because I didn't want to give Zephyr any extra. You know how
No.
Zephyr go? No, you don't want to give Zephyr any extra. So we are the number one station in the nation. We are streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook. You can follow me, subscribe. Y'all subscribe to the YouTube channel at Nahaja Black. So go and look up Nahaja Black. We are streaming live every day there. Subscribe to the channel, share, share, share. The show is continuing to grow as we traverse through COVID-19. We are trying our best to get to and reach as many Bahamians as possible to get your thoughts and your words on today's show. Today, we want you to call in to give us your thoughts on the news of the day, being that we are going to be locked down. Ladies and gentlemen, the lockdown is on. We have reached a point where COVID-19 is not coming. We are not coming down off of the second wave, as the Prime Minister initially said on the 23rd. We are not on this other side of the pandemic or coming down. We are seemingly moving up. The second wave is definitely worse than the first. We are trying our best to be our best, but others would say not. And I have one of the persons in society whose words are very are weighty, but I don't know how many regular folks appreciate the words or like when he speaks, is Ed Fields. And he said something interesting. Ed Fields is also a talk show host on another station. He is a part of almost every committee you could find that is in the Bahamas. Ed Fields is everywhere, right? That's one brother who ain't going nowhere. No administration. Ed gonna live forever. So shout out to the fact that the brother's gonna live forever. Hello, Sonny. Yes, we are live from Black Point Studios, aka Nahaja's living room. That is so true. But we are locked down again, CA. We are locked down again. And it is so to give folks a little bit of information on what has been stated by the PM. Things that have been shared by the PM is that, listen, it ain't getting no better. The hospitals are stretched. We have no rooms in the inn. People are sick. And the COVID cases are, causing a lot of issues, even with persons who aren't COVID-19 positive. Those persons who have cancer treatment, persons who are trying to get their neck fixed, their back fixed, their chronic ailments dealt with. So this is all of all of these issues that are causing what we knew was going to happen, Cecil. What we talked about,
Weeks before.
yeah, because we were talking about the worst case scenario would be that we have this pandemic gets so out of hand that it causes a total collapse in our healthcare system. what we are hearing from nurses, doctors, healthcare providers, from the prime minister, politicians is that, listen, the healthcare system is stretched and that we are in a code red in this health fight against COVID-19, hence the need to lock down. So we're going to give some information. Someone says, who is we? When Grand Bahama was getting mashed up, Nassau laughed at us and called us criminal. Now that it is Nassau, it is New Providence, is we. Yeah, so true. Grand Bahamians got the little, the Grand Bahamians, I don't blame y'all, child. When it was locked down for 2 weeks, we were like, y'all just lawless. Now it's our turn and we got to live through this. So this is where we are today. Cecil, first off, we are going to get locked. The lockdown is immediate starting Friday. We are going to be locked down the entire weekend, holiday weekend, and weekends further, right? Weekends plus into the future.
The weekend plus a day for the holiday.
For the holiday. And then continuing on other weekends until we get this under control, based on my understanding of it. Was that your understanding of it?
Yes. Every weekend moving forward, and I guess until the tourists start coming back, we're going to be locked down.
When was that again?
The tourists will be back in November sometime. That's when the big hotels we expect to be open.
Right, and so beaches will be open then too.
Beaches will be open in time for the tourists.
Right. So the tourists will get the beaches, or will it just be the hotel beaches?
We will benefit from the tourist benefits. Yes.
This is going to be interesting. Okay, so the lockdown, and what folks are asking, that there's reason, Cecil, and it makes sense. Okay, at this point, I've never been pro lockdown, but I understand the need for it. There is need for it. And
I support the lockdown. I support the lockdown.
At this point, we are at a place where, the challenges are there. Where I have questions is, what is the benefit of the weekend lockdowns, right? And you know what? Let me get the information, and I have the information here so that we can get it all sorted and correct, so that we can say it out loud. But when you think about the benefits of these lockdowns, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, right now we have over 2,000 active cases, so I have that in my mind. And then I consider how much persons we have in hospital. We have over 100 people in hospital. So having that in my mind, I understand the need to do something drastic. And that drastic thing right there is a lockdown. Now, my question is, what is the end result or anticipated results for the lockdown? What are we gearing towards or moving towards? And the Prime Minister in his address to the nation hinted that when the numbers lower, the number of cases, active cases, the number of cases in hospital. Now, mind you, he didn't give a quantifying amount to say, well, when it drops from 100 to 60 or it drops from 100 to 90, that is an indicator. So it's at a whim. It's about how he feels again. No definitive answer to say, well, I understand and I know what to work towards. So I'm working with him, but I don't know the parameters of what I'm working toward. So I'm lost. So it's all up to him. Whenever he says that I'm not subject to being locked down, is when I come off a lockdown and I become free again. So it's him. He is still the man in charge. It's not a group thing.
Authority. Yep.
It's still not a group thing. He's making it appear that it's us with him. Mm-hmm. But with me lacking information on what I'm working towards, it is still him at his whim and at his decision. And whatever he says goes. And I support him. So if he said that we need a lockdown until January, every weekend, I shall be locked down. I definitely know I can be locked down for Christmas and Boxing Day.
We know that every holiday right? is a lockdown day, and we won't have Junkanoo Rush Hours.
And I anticipate also January 1. I anticipate me being locked down. There's no fireworks. I don't anticipate seeing that.
Well, you know what?
I hope to see a rerun on TV that I can watch the fireworks and have the same sensation. So I'm bracing myself for such, and I'm hoping that he allows certain stores in the mall to open so I can buy the wife a Christmas present.
You got to order online. You got to give all your money to Amazon. Okay, so we got some provisions. And by the way, can we get some of those drones to check behind the gates, because if I see anybody around here riding in a golf cart, without their mask on, I got problems. And we supposed
I
to be
gotta
locked down.
interject that the behind the gates is a hotel, and hotel have some exceptions. Once you have your COVID test, you are free to take off your mask.
So behind the gates, the gated communities are considered hotels?
No, one particular, not all. Just one particular is registered.
The one way out, west,
community.
south.
Yeah, the entire community is a hotel.
That sends letters saying that we in a Biden.
Yes, the road is a hotel. Once you pass that gate, you're in a different type of atmosphere. Different rules.
Different rules altogether.
Yes.
Altogether. Oh, well, okay.
All together. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
You know what's so crazy? That the whole concept of different rules altogether is how we got into this problem in my opinion, how we got to this place where Bahamians have lost trust and really have stopped listening to the PM. And it's a sad state because there are different rules. And therefore, you see where money gets you a different outcome. And that's sad when we are told that we're in this together, we should move from y'all should to we should, but they don't. So it's a whole different story. But let's share some of the Prime Minister's communications today. Again, if you're just tuning in or, showing up, tuning into the show, you're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. We are live, streaming, of course, live on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. And also in my humble abode. So if you're seeing me online, don't judge. This ain't the studio, okay? A little low budget, so save it. All right. New provisions will take effect Friday, October 9th at 7 p.m. So everybody, these start Friday, October 9th at 7 p.m. Full 24-hour lockdowns, Friday, 7 p.m. until 5 a.m. on Monday. On Mondays. So that's the constant. So every weekend, 24-hour weekend lockdowns, every Friday, 7 p.m. until 5 a.m. Monday, until further notice. There will be a full 3-day lockdown for the holiday weekend until 5 a.m. on Tuesday, October 13th. Only essential services such as uniform branches, essential utility services will be able to operate. And I gather this is the same essential services that we had prior. And I think, of course, Just Road will be able to be on Just Road, right? So Just Road, the channel Just Road, that should be able to make it. Only essential services such as uniform branches, so they said, and airports will be able to operate. No flights will be affected. Is that both coming in and coming out? No flights will be affected. Only 1 hour allowed for church on Saturdays and Sundays. So we're still allowed to go to church. Okay.
Yes, just not the food store, but go ahead.
Yeah, so no food stores though. You could go to church, but no food stores.
Go to church.
Pharmacies and gas stations will be able to operate. And I gather that is on the lockdown weekends, right? And so you could go to church, which is a blessing.
You go to church. Mm-hmm.
Right? And I gather these churches have to prove that they're mitigating. I gather that the COVID-19 task force is going to be in there to ensure that people are 6 feet apart, because I see a lot of churches that are 3 feet apart, but who am I to judge, But anyway, and what we're hearing from, CDC and others is that this thing is definitely an aerosol type event, right? So it spreads. It's not just sitting on a counter anymore. You breathe in the air, something is happening. So closed quarters are an interesting thing. But don't mash up the church. The church will be upset. And plus, I like the pastor, T.G. Morrison. I don't want the man vexed no more. Y'all done vex him long enough. Let the church say amen. Amen, amen.
Amen.
Weekday curfew will be from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily. Weekday curfew. So we're back to curfews where we always were. We hadn't stopped at 11. But at least it was 11 o'clock, so you didn't feel so constrained. But now it's from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily. No social gatherings will be permitted at all. So we had to make sure bury everyone that we needed to bury, right? And have that rush outs that we needed and the mass burials by the police. All of those things are over with now. And so we will not be permitting social gatherings at all, right? Again, how are they policing that? The amount of cars, I gather, in your house. And they gave this, which helps. A confidential hotline to report social gatherings. Everybody get your pen. Everybody get your pen. Everybody get your pen. This is powerful. 702 Okay, why is there an echo now, Cecil? I don't know. Oh, let me see what's going on now. All right. So the social thing is 702-9967 through 9. 702-9967 through 9. All right. So that say that again.
What do I say when I call this number?
I see people.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, what do you think? I see people. I think that's a word.
That's good. I see people.
I see
Yeah.
people. I mean, they ain't dead yet, so you can't say I see dead people. So we just gonna say I see people, and it's a lot of them.
Oh, I see live people partying.
I see people who they ain't doing their best, right? Someone say I got HD monitors in a flash sequence. Boom, you're right. That don't mess with that. Okay, what else do we have here? So don't forget to call the number. You'll write down the number. Cecil, did you write down the number? Because that's a real number.
I have
now.
it saved on my phone.
Okay,
I have
'cause
all individually. So I guess you can press next.
Okay. You can just
Money
keep
gotta
pressing.
make.
Once 7 through 9, we just gonna keep next.
Yeah.
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 I hope it's not like 311, and because they
No.
gave us a short number, and it was just a whole other story.
That don't work out well.
No. So, but this 7-digit number with 2 extra extensions, this is powerful. All right. So that's.
Would it be against the law if I dial this number now to say I just was calling to see if it works?
I don't think so. I think you have to do this is station identification. I think we should call it.
So can I put my mic on mute and do that while you continue to talk?
Call Boo and then play it, see if it's recording. I want to hear something though. I want to hear something so I can leave it unmuted. I can leave it unmuted while you dial. I can leave
Okay,
it unmuted.
I'll call.
All right.
on.
Just don't do it on speaker yet until you hear something. Religious services may continue through the week following the guidelines of the Christian Council. 10 people will be permitted to attend the funeral at the graveside. Wakes and repasts will not be permitted, not including the officiant. 10 people can be at a wedding, not including the officiant. Okay, that's good because they were counting the officiant and all of those things. Only virtual schooling for NP and Abaco. It ringing. Wow, this is powerful.
ringing? Yeah.
Go and check. Okay. Only virtual schooling for New Providence and Abaco.
Hello?
Is it ringing? No, it ain't ringing. Okay, sorry.
It rings and then it hang up. So go ahead, sorry. But
They must know you on the air. Cecil ain't answering you. Only virtual schooling for New Providence and Abaco, which is an important thing to mention, right? If we're only doing virtual schooling now, is that for private and public? Are we now saying private and public schools we knew public schools didn't have a chance, but God, now they're being moved to virtual where they were struggling to be virtual. Now it's going all the way virtual. And I'm wondering, okay, is that private as well as public? So that's questions that I have. Is it private as well as public that is going to be virtual? So I don't know. I think that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. I don't know. But they now have it where private and virtual schools, there will be all virtual on New Providence and Abaco. Beaches and parks will be closed. Exercise on the weekend in your yard. Stay your hip in your yard. You won't work out? Stay in your yard. Gyms will be closed as well. Only takeaway, curbside, and delivery services for restaurants. All retail will be curbside, except, what was the other one? Except for food stores, gas stations cannot provide in-store service. I wondered about that. Why do you think that they can't provide in-store service in the gas station? Sometimes the gas station is the only place who got the tin of cream you need. And it's closer than the food store.
True.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm echoing. And you know what? Let me ask my producer why I'm echoing so. But I don't know. I wonder why what's the sense in that? Why is that the case? That they would have the gas stations would need to be closed. I'm curious about that all the way. So that is one of the things. So gas stores, in-store services needs to be closed. And I don't know. The Prime Minister encouraged telework and a shift system to avoid large numbers in the workplace. The Prime Minister, Hubert Minnis, said that the hospitals are full and the medical teams have been pushed to full capacity in New Providence. He has said his government uses science and data and listens to the recommendations coming from health officials. So I think it was important that he shared that, that they use
Yes,
science
it is important.
and data. Well, did he use science and data when he said that we were coming on the other side? We were coming down from our second wave. Our second wave was slowly decreasing. And then all of a sudden, on that same day when he gave that speech, did he not get the data that the number was 151 new cases? Like, was that data left? I don't understand. So I have my challenges with when he talks about data. And what is the data that these... I'm curious. This is where I'm curious, Cecil. I have no problem. I think that we have to at this point go with the lockdown. And this is unfortunate because it hurts. It is an unfortunate thing. It hurts. But it isn't the aggressive one where he would lock people down for, the entire week without notice. It isn't that aggressive one. But I'm curious, where is the information or the data that he's gathering that will tell him this will work, how it will work, how we will find ourselves out of this doldrum. He even mentioned in one of his speeches, Cecil, that, and we're getting an echo from your side, but he mentioned in one of his speeches, Cecil, that we were going to have to live with this virus. If we're going to have to live with this virus, we have to gather first off, get it under control. Getting it under control means that we have to, pull the bull by his horns. But what is this? What is the data that tells us that the weekend thing will work? And subsequent weekends, what is the data so that you can share it? What is the data saying? Does the data and science that you've gathered give us a story or a narrative how you are going to rein in this virus that is crippling the economy? Those things are important. I think if you're going to start telling us you listen to science and data, then the science and data should have a lot more information that you can create a narrative and a story that we can buy in.
Well, I agree with you. And the issue is not necessarily the science and data. The issue is not being shared with the community. We want to understand the science and data so we can support our prime minister and support the competent authority and his decisions. He comes and tells us that it is science and data, but then we do not comprehend what he's saying because he never shared the data or the science with us. And this is where we left wanting and we left questioning and saying, well, is he being sincere? Is he being for real? And this is something that the prime minister needs to correct. Now, mind you, he is using some great quotable points, some things that people been criticizing and critiquing him about for a while. You see that he's now coming back and correcting these things, right? We've been begging and questioning the science and data for locking down on the weekends and lockdowns in general. We've been begging for the science and data on terms of why the beaches needs to be closed. We've been begging for science and data in terms of virtual schooling versus the face-to-face schooling. And he comes back and says, oh yeah, I'm using science and data. And then we ask again, what is it?
Yep.
And then it's silence again. There's silence again. But I trust the prime minister. And if the prime minister says science and data he's using, it's science and data he's using. And who am I to question him? He's a doctor. And we need a doctor for this type of time.
This is powerful. So we need a doctor for this time. I love you, Cecil. That's why I love bringing you on the show. You're my favorite person. I just want you to know you're like my top 10 person in the whole wide section of the East. Like you're right there. Yeah, man. You in my East top 10. You might have COVID.
Eastern version.
Yeah. But this is I would like to trust the PM, but I am going with this at this point. I'm going with it. Let me tell you why I'm going with it. Someone says there is no data. They think we stupid. Grand Bahama was locked down completely, but they still have cases. No complete stop. There is no data for weekend lockdowns. Again, someone says there is no.
Bahama cases went down. Bimini cases went down.
They went down.
We see that something happened.
And there is science and data behind. There is science and data behind the lockdowns. The question is, where's the science and data for us, right?
Yes.
What is the model that we're using to forecast that if we do this, and to say that you're going to just lock us down in perpetuity each weekend, you didn't give a deadline. So then that shows me that you don't have real science or data. Because real science and data would create a model for you that would allow you to say, hey, well, listen, we're able to look and project. If we do this consistently over this period of time, we are expecting to have this lockdowns cease by then, because we would expect for every week we will see a reduction in cases, or every 2 weeks we'll expect to see this or that. And they're not even saying, okay, well, the variable is, ladies and gentlemen, that you can go ahead and if we don't do these things, no matter how we lock down, the variable says that if Bahamians are not doing X, Y, and Z, no matter how we lock down, it's not going to help. This is going to affect your pocket. And as we see people already having their pocket affected, you have to tell a story. You have to create and paint a picture and give the narrative on how we can help ourselves, rather than just giving this ridiculous thing where we always hear, well, if Bahamians should just follow the rules. But where is the data that tells you how many people aren't following the rules? Where is the data that tells you what type of person or the demographic? Where is the stations where someone can get a mask free of charge? Where are the stations where someone can actually go and say, well, listen, there's a depot out there. The government has commissioned this group to make hand sanitizer. We can go there because we have a voucher and get free hand sanitizer. Where is the support systems? All right. Go ahead, Cecil.
Oh, my mic mute again.
Go ahead. Why you mute yourself? You mute yourself, sweet boy. What's going on?
Can you hear me now? Yes. So what you were saying is very progressive. It's progressive, and it's called for a progressive nation. The idea of having a depot where inner city people and people who have challenges can go with a voucher and claim sanitizers, right? Especially since it's suggested that we have a problem. We're not washing our hands, right? A entity where you can go and get cheaper mask for a cheaper price, or government-sponsored mask. See, these are progressive ideas, especially when the competent authority is critiquing and criticizing Bahamians in general, saying that we're not accomplishing this and doing that. One would assume that you make a safe space, an environment, even cheaper testing for people in the city, because now it's $100 to test you. So, but suppose I live off East Street. Suppose I have a strange cough that I don't understand, but I ain't too sure if I have COVID or not. You can't expect me to use my $150, which I got to pay rent, grocery, and what else I got to pay, what the government is giving me to pay for COVID tests. And you can't really expect me to say I cannot go to the food store no more and be quarantined when I'm the sole breadwinner for my family of 4, 5, 6. Right? And I only receiving this $150 check from NIB, of unemployment check. One would assume that the government will say, I'm here to help you, or there'll be some NGOs who say, I'm here to help you and give you that support. But that is not happening. So we're being blamed, but there's no assistance, no hands up. And this is something that must be critiqued. And these are some things that the government must be pressured on moving forward regarding this. And like I said, I am supporting the Prime Minister. I understand that his back is against the wall. There's some tough decisions needs to be made. And I understand that he's using science and data, but there needs to be better communication. There needs to be better communication so I can understand what is happening, why he's making these decisions, and what is the next step. See, to this point, I don't know when this lockdown is going to end. So I'm saying that this lockdown is going to be in perpetuity. It's going to be forever, because I don't see the numbers dropping. I don't understand how it's going to drop, why it's going to drop, what step is going to cost it to drop. You know, I'm not sure if just being home on the weekend will stop COVID. I just don't know, right? But if he's able to give me that narrative, give me that data, explain it to me, and then I say, oh, I see it now. If I stay home on Saturday and Sunday and start my day on Monday to go to work or whatever I got to do, right? I know that the COVID will decline and the whole Bahamas would benefit, right? Mm-hmm. And mind you, I know the Prime Minister means well. I'm just saying that the narrative that we need, that inner city people need, is not being communicated enough, and that he and his fellow persons within that health system needs to do a better job for that. right? And again, going back to your suggestion in terms of depots and in terms of access to masks, we need assistance, but definitely we know the police force needs assistance. But I happened to go to file a report to the police station recently.
Bad idea.
My stepfather had a lost ID, so I had to go report it. And going inside, they had the sanitizer at the door. The police in charge make sure that you stop there, go back, right? Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that. I see them making the effort. They wore gloves. They have steps where you go in the police station. So they have made effort to solve this spreading of this virus. And I think that also needs to be communicated. I see that one of the ministers is on quarantine again.
Yeah.
Right. Exposed again. The whole ministry is on lockdown for cleaning again. But surely something is wrong, because every other week the same persons are going into quarantine again and again. Something they're doing or not doing is happening, and we need to address that. We need to ask the questions, investigate, and solve and curb that problem before it spreads.
You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black. When we come back, we'll be joined. We're talking a bit more about this, of course, the lockdown, everything that it means. We will also have joining us at 5 o'clock, Dr. Susan Lockhart. She will be joining us. Williams Lockhart. She'll be joining us to talk about the pandemic and what really from the sense of what is going on in the healthcare sector, how it is affecting us, and why the lockdowns why they should happen and how they can help. And so that's what's going to be who's going to be joining us. I also extended an invitation to the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Delon Brennan, and hopefully he gets a chance to join us after his meeting on the show today. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black. My good friend C.A. Nuri is joining us here. We are live, Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, live on YouTube, live on Facebook. Feel free to follow, like, and share. Of course, everyone, stay safe, stay tuned. We got a lot more to discuss. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black right here on Guardian 96.9 FM.
Wait, you know what going down tomorrow?
Nobody, what happening?
Joe bringing me knife to school. He could do Junior in.
For what?
But he fooled with Joe girl.
Mother sick. And you know Junior don't back down for nothing. So that means he got a big fight tomorrow.
So whose side you want?
Side? I trying to stay in school, not Simpson Pen. We gotta tell somebody about this fight.
Tell somebody. I ain't no snitch. I mean cool, you know.
Wait, if you so cool, then you need to stay in school and stay out of the fight.
Yeah, but if I don't hang on Joe's side, how many boys coming for me next?
All right, so we definitely gotta tell somebody. We gotta prevent the fight.
What I say, I don't want nobody call me snitch.
We could just call Crime Stoppers. You could report what you know, and nobody gotta know it's you.
So how do I avoid?
All you gotta do is call them or you text them through the Crack Crime Bahamas app, and nobody can know it's you.
Then the police come looking for me for more info, and when they finish with them, Joe them coming looking for me?
When you call Crime Stoppers, the call go directly to Miami, and they don't ask nothing about you. Then you can get the pen from them, and you can claim a reward later using that same pen.
Plus, everything's scrambled, so nobody can read what you said.
Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands.
Great news! You can now receive up to $100 cash back when you use your Fidelity MasterCard credit card from October 1st to October 31st, 2020. To participate and learn more about this offer, visit www.fidelitygroup.com. Terms and conditions apply. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Cancer is smart. It pushes us. We push back. Challenging conventional thinking, finding smarter solutions. That's what makes Cancer Treatment Centers of America one of the leaders in precision cancer treatment, using tools like advanced genomic testing and immunotherapy to bring more options to our patients. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. We're not just fighting cancer anymore. We're outsmarting it. Visit cancercenter.com/outsmart to learn more.
Stop.
If you have responded to an email, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram message asking you to be part of a mystery shopping scheme, you may be committing a money laundering offense, which could get you defrauded of your money or lose access to personal or business accounts. The most common approach is to offer you a job as a mystery shopper, but first you need to provide your bank account number, phone number, or a copy of your driver's license, passport, or personal information document. Once you've done that, you are told that your bank account will be credited with money and you can keep a percentage of the deposited funds, then send on the rest. If you do that, you have received stolen money and must repay the bank for any funds lost in the transaction. If you respond to that scam, the liability is all yours.
Visit GetMoneySmartBahamas.com today.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. My good friend Sia Nuri had to take a quick leave of absence. He has to go and deal with family life. So my friend has to go and do his business, his due diligence. All right. So if you're just tuning in, the news of the day is we are on lockdown this weekend. There are new orders, new contingencies. We are going to have to brace ourselves. The new normal hasn't changed. This is where we are is pretty much a lot of fatigue, a lot of COVID angst. If you want to give us a call, of course, you can feel free to give calls. Producer, please make sure you send me the text as well on the line. But where we are, ladies and gentlemen, is that things aren't changing. Since the Prime Minister had made his announcement that we were on this other side of COVID, the second wave, things have gotten worse. And I feel like, it's one of those things, Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And it is sad that, all of this is happening the way that it is the way that it is happening. And we are struggling at best to catch it, to make it make sense. And I saw someone say on the stream that, hey, look, the Prime Minister has to leave. I can agree to some extent, because this is poor management from the beginning. I don't believe that we're here because we were misbehaving from Jump Street. I believe that we're here because there were poor policies, poor planning, poor structure. That you cannot expect for people to continually give up rights or make themselves uncomfortable without clear outlines and timelines. Okay, so there weren't clear outlines, clear guidelines. And when I mean guidelines, in terms of, just being straight with the people and not having double standards and being fair, calling for a lockdown, an immediate effect, and then not expecting people to have an upheaval. 7 days in New Providence, 200,000 people. And you're expecting that to be okay. And then instead of having a plan, you throw your hands up. We have a call on the line. Caller, you're on the Hit Back. Welcome. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and you?
Great. In this year, regular WhatsApp call, texter.
All right.
You haven't talked to you in a couple of days, but how you doing? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm the one that said last time with the Prime Minister and the backtracking of the lockdown. Mm-hmm. That he needed to resign, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, because he had no credibility. But right now, it doesn't matter if he was the Prime Minister or someone else was the Prime Minister. These measures, I think, are necessary now. From Sunday, most persons after that address knew what was coming down the pipeline.
Yep.
Right? A number of things, all right? Infection rate, he mentioned that. And I think in the last Ministry of Health, with Dr. Macmillan, they had the graph up on television, and they talked about the infection rate being over 1% or under 1%, and that's a good direction once it goes under 1%. We are over 1. I think we're close to 2 or more.
Right.
And that is a serious thing. If you look at certain places in the U.S., look at New York. They had it down to really a controllable point. When they opened up, as they eased their relaxation and started to open up more and more of their economy, you had persons doing similar things that we have been doing over here. You had more social gatherings, disregard for the measures, all right? And it caused the spread. He mentioned that most of the spread is coming from the home, persons going out, socializing.
Well, actually, what they're saying, this way, they're saying most of it seems to be workplace related.
Workplace and then
workplace related, not familiar like we saw the earlier onset of the second wave, but now it seems more so workplace related.
Okay, and that Grand Bahama and the Family Islands obviously are under 1% or right there close to it. So that is why they're in the clear. We want to throw caution to the wind and do what we feel like doing and not observe the measures. And in the workplace, yes, persons being reported not wearing the mask or not properly socially distancing and all of that. This should have been easy with some of the hiccups we had early on in terms of what to do. Early on at the first, they call this the second wave. I think this is an extension of the first wave. But because we had a lockdown and a reopening of the economy fully in July, we call this the second wave. But if we do not get that infection rate down, where the number of cases are coming down, who's going to come here? We're going to have more persons. The hospital, the healthcare situation will be, it is already past capacity. So not just with COVID, you have persons with other sicknesses and will need, so it will definitely collapse. If there's one thing
you're for the lockdown, and you're saying, hey, listen, it is what it is. We got to bite the bullet.
Something has to be done.
And I agree.
Quickly curtail this. And if that measure, he says they're going to be, in terms of the health official, along with his cabinet, in particular himself, I guess, will be looking at those metrics. That was one of the guiding criteria, that if persons follow in the U.S. when the pandemic was really ravaging New York, the governor came on each day
and gave, listen, caller, I appreciate where you're coming from, and I want to make sure I give room for other callers on the show, because I get your point. And this is where we are, and where we are is that we have to, at this point, acquiesce to this measure. The question is now, and thank you so much for calling, and I appreciate the call. The question is now, as we acquiesce to this measure, as we, acquiesce meaning we have a choice, but as we go through this process, of another lockdown, the question then is, what is the next step after this? Are we going into weekend lockdowns in perpetuity? What is the mark? Because we did a lockdown before, ladies and gentlemen, and we had low numbers. Then bad policy, created a doorway where people, Bahamians and foreigners, can go away, come back, and not with 72 hours, especially Bahamians, 72 hours without needing a test, into the hotbed of a COVID cities, in the United States. And so we lock it down when there weren't cases, but we open it up when it's on fire. So these were bad policies and decisions. I feel for the prime minister, it is really a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation, right? And the reason why I say that is because no one wants to get locked down. There is no comfortable lockdown period. There's no comfortable lockdown experience. There isn't one. But we are going to have to look at money. So we have, it was really discouraging to me to see so many Bahamians having to protest for a right to get paid off after being furloughed for 6 months and having to beg their government to show compassion. Where is your heart? Where is your soul? You know, that this is where we have Bahamians having to find themselves. One lady said that she's sleeping in a car. She's been working in the hotel for 20, 30 odd years. She's sleeping in her car. And this is happening because she'd been on furlough. The government can only give you $150 a week. But rather than say to the hotels, listen, you can't have people on furlough for, 6 months and we can only give them $150. The government has decided to put the burden on themselves with $150, which is far less than what people are making. And, let me just say this for all of those folks who are talking about, well, Bahamians should be, grateful what the government is doing. Stop talking foolishness. Stop talking fool. The people who were working, they weren't asking the government for money when they had a job. They weren't on the NIB line. And when they were working, they were probably making far more than $150. Okay? You know why they were making far more? Because $210 is minimum wage. The government is not even giving minimum wage through NIB. And by the way, NIB has been the one to bail out a poorly managed and extremely corrupt banking system where the executives have been determined to be poor managers, but ain't nobody going to jail. I digress. When you look at this, people are finding themselves with their dignity and they're in their hands waiting on checks, some people for $14. You say, well, the government, they weren't owed this, but they were working. They had a job. The government deems that we needed a lockdown. The government then, in turn, with the need for the lockdown, talking about the healthcare system, didn't put into account that these people, you're affecting their health. When I used to make $400 a week, I'm now given $100 plus standing on the line. We got a caller on the line. Caller, you're on the head back. Welcome.
A pleasant good afternoon, Miss Black.
Good afternoon, Sparkalicious. What's going on?
Hey there, Muggalicious. What's going on, Muggalicious?
Everything's well, my
yeah,
friend.
you couldn't beat nobody rowing the government or even the prime minister, because I know you must have seen one or two of my videos. But listening to him, and I have a group, a WhatsApp group with 54 members, and I sent out a little poll today. And I could say close to 80 to 90% of them voted today in favor of this. But most of the comments were that the lockdown at this time we think is necessary, but they need a real lockdown, not a total lockdown. Be locked down, you'll be locked down. You get your food, you get whatever it is, you could muster up a thing and stay in your yard. No partying, no social partying, no this and that, no and that. If you get seen breaking curfew or the lockdown, you lock up. Put a ladder to the doggone wall up by the prison, by the big bus, and make you climb the ladder, jump over the next side till we finish with you. Pick you up after the lockdown. But we got to do a serious lockdown, not no little play thing where people still going through the back door to the bar and the party to the corner and this and that and the next, and everybody got Hennessy in their hand and partying and all over WhatsApp and Facebook and Messenger. And ain't nobody doing nothing. The police car even in the area. So police them living through that same corner. Ain't calling headquarters, ain't doing nothing. We need a lockdown and get this under control. And this is one time I say that I believe, as much as I hated the last lockdown, I hate this one what's coming as well. But I'm trying, what is confusing me, Ms. Blackhead? We can lock down for 3 days, right?
Yep.
We're going from Friday, 7 p.m., Saturday, Sunday, Monday's holiday, and then we wake up on Tuesday morning, 5 a.m. But now from 5 a.m. Monday, all the days during the week, we could go back to doing the stupidest and then we lock down again for the weekend.
Hold on.
If we do lockdown, why we don't just do a lockdown and get rid of COVID-19?
Sparky, you can't get rid of COVID-19. COVID-19 ain't going nowhere.
And then you catch it, they family, and they can spread.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
listen,
we don't do it. That's all I'm saying.
I appreciate you, Sparky. I think they're doing it. I think they're doing it, and they're doing it the best that they can do it, right? The best that they can get it done. Well, when I say the best they can get it done, this one is different, right? Someone asked the question, every weekend though, right? People out and about through the week. I simply don't understand the lockdown every weekend. And again, it comes back to data and science. And when the prime minister talks about he gets his information through data and science, I'm a woman who loves data and science. When I was doing my thesis in my last year of school, and when we were doing our thesis in university, and this was in what is it, statistical econ? No, this was something else in economics. I can't remember the class, but nonetheless, in Canada, one of the things that we were able to use for our thesis was the Canadian Health Database. So I was able to, from my university, sit in the lab, right? Sit in the computer lab and go through the health database and come up with a thesis. So I was able to, through their system that was open and available to us at the university, type in what are the parameters for persons who are smoking and their use of the health system, right? That's what I was able to. And I was able to drill it down to age, their sex, their location. Are they in suburbia? Do we find that people who are out in the boonies smoke more? We were able to determine, or you were able to see, okay, what about the indigenous persons? Why are indigenous people seemingly smoking more? And then you found that it wasn't necessarily the case. I would say that to say this, that you were able to find out information through data that was readily accessible. The question is, how were we able to determine? Because right now, as the order stands, weekends are lockdowns in perpetuity. That makes no sense to me. There should have been an end date. Where do you forecast the end date? When COVID dies? When a vaccine comes about? How are we going to, and this is at this point, and then I have to say it again, we are so far gone in this situation. The healthcare sector is overrun. We have failed. New Providence has failed. We have failed. Right. And, again, the prime minister and as a competent authority, and I put it all on him because he didn't decide to make it a real authority. He wanted to be the competent authority. So all decisions are made final through him. So that is the burden he carries. When you got a team, when the team sucks, you call it the coach, right? The coach is failing. Or you call it the general manager for not picking the right people. So which one is the prime minister? Is he the general manager who hasn't picked the right team? Well, no, because the prime minister is the president. He's everything. He's it. He is the president, the GM. He is the coach. Heck, he even wants to be the players. So what are we looking at? We are looking at a situation where all of this is resting on his head. What happened the last time he tried to call a lockdown was it was poorly done. I remember me saying there's no way he's going to do it and give us no notice. You can't do that. He gave us no notice at immediate effect. People didn't have water. People didn't have diapers, baby food. You can imagine if you have painkillers you need to get, if you're on medication. Foolish. At least, and then causing mayhem with the day schedule with food stores. Foolishness. After that, though, he decides to throw his hands up. And, whatever we decide is whatever we decide. Whatever we decide. That's not leadership. That's not leadership. Leadership would be today if my prime minister would have said, listen, not just there have been mistakes, but an acknowledgement. Listen, there have been mistakes. I have failed in some areas. This is not about political brownie points, ladies and gentlemen. It's about the lives. Your lives matter to me. I understand that there may have been some challenges with trusting me. And because I know that the trust may have been breached, I am bringing more people into the fold and reducing my power and making a real authority that is competent so that we can better facilitate the changes necessary. This is not about me, ladies and gentlemen. This is about us. This is about we. And if need be, there's a different voice. Even if there's a need for a different voice, then you do that. But the challenge has been that the prime minister's moved from using all of his heavy-handedness to then getting rebuked and rebuffed by the people. Young people are out on the street. Operation Sovereign Bahamas started marching, people getting arrested. And to nothing, coming back saying the speech that we're past our second wave, then boom, 151 cases. Every day after that has been more and more, averaging a death a day. We are in trouble. And so now we're at a point where you can't let it continue. You can't let it continue. You have to do something. He cannot abdicate his responsibility and allow us to continue to have people who die, allow the healthcare system to be overrun, allow mothers and persons who want to have just regular surgeries that are affecting their lives get it done, because the hospital is a hotbed for COVID-19. He has to do something. And he now has to show up. And this is one of those things. But now where is the data that helps us to buy into how this will make sense? You got to make it make sense. We have to do the lockdown to catch ourselves. We're not doing a week, right? We're not doing the week thing. And because you couldn't take care of the people if you did it for a week. You can't go and do a week and not make sure that people are able to eat and, give them enough time to prepare, those who have the funds and those who don't. Did you have them? Listen. We can't borrow anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with me on this. We cannot afford to borrow anymore. The country is heading to an economic spiral and crisis like we've never seen before. You think what you're seeing is this something now? Wait, because until the rest of the world catches itself, y'all don't look at tourism and cruise ships in January? Cruise ships and tourism in January? Any cruise ship or tourist that comes in January will not be anywhere near the numbers that you're expecting. The United States has opened up its borders, opened up its markets, and the jobs are coming back, but it's nowhere near to pre-COVID levels, and it's going to take time. So we have to be wise in how we do this, but we need information so that you can get the people to buy back in. And that's all I'm saying, It isn't... The Prime Minister needs our support. We need to take care of ourselves. You do it for your own family. You do it for your mother and your father. My father celebrated his 65th birthday, 64th. Oh, and we got to go to news. My apologies. His 64th birthday today. And his grandchildren couldn't celebrate with him. And I had to go there, drop off a cake with a face mask and leave. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black. We'll be back after this.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to the Guardian News Network. I'm Taylor Ferguson. Making news. Thank you so much for tuning in. New restrictions announced by Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis today, not sitting well with opposition leader Philip Davis. He says he's troubled by the state of the healthcare system and labeled the new restrictions an act of punishment.
I think it's an act of punishment. It's an act of, it feeds into the narrative that Bahamians are not cooperating. And I share a different view. The measures are coercive. Coercion is not the way. Seeking to get cooperation is the way, in my view.
Dr. Minnis announced a series of restrictive measures aimed at stopping the rapid spread of COVID-19 on New Providence and Abaco. There will be weekend lockdowns, a new curfew, and beach closures. As he said, the COVID-19 pandemic is World War III.
We are living in an unprecedented global emergency. And each day is an emergency. And we have to constantly make adjustments day in, and day out, and sometimes on an hourly basis.
Centerville MP Reese Chipman said while restrictions may curb the spread of COVID-19, he feels Dr. Minnis is only looking for political gain.
Well, they know that it would play a vital role. That's why they're doing the restrictions. Because at the end of the day, he wants to stand up and say, see what I do. That's politics. That's playing with people's lives. Because you could have done this time and time. You could have done this before. Why now? And so my thing is that, yes, of course, restrictions would help. But we don't need you bringing restrictions for your own political advantage. Restrictions are supposed to be in place for the betterment of our public health system and the Bahamian people, not just because you want to get back into the House of Assembly.
Chipman said the Bahamas should have been more prepared for COVID-19, adding the government has poorly managed this pandemic. That's what's making news. I'm Taylor Ferguson. AP News is coming up next.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Coronavirus update. I'm Jackie Quinn with an AP News Minute. Shasta County, California is reimposing some virus restrictions with an outbreak that sickened more than 100 students and staffers at the Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry. Now restaurants, bars, and theaters in the county will have to scale back again. New York's governor says the state is going to reimpose restrictions this week on some schools, religious institutions, and businesses, specifically in Queens and Brooklyn, along with other areas where the coronavirus is spiking. As for President Trump telling people not to be afraid of COVID-19.
No, be afraid of COVID. It can kill you.
President Trump, meanwhile, has halted negotiations with Democrats for another virus relief package, saying nothing until after the election. U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams was cited in Honolulu for breaking virus restrictions. He visited a park that was closed for social distancing. I'm Jackie Quinn.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The Nonprofit Organization Act came into effect on May 25, 2020, requiring all NPOs to register within 90 days. Under the Act, all nonprofit organizations must register with the Office of the Registrar General. The deadline has been extended to October 8, 2020, to facilitate all non-compliant account holders. We wish to advise that all Commonwealth Bank NPO clients must be registered, and proof of registration will be required in order to avoid account suspension. You are encouraged to visit your home branch as soon as possible to update your account information. Commonwealth Bank, leader in personal banking services.
Cancer is smart. It pushes us. We push back, challenging conventional thinking, finding smarter solutions. That's what makes Cancer Treatment Centers of America one of the leaders in precision cancer treatment, using tools like advanced genomic testing and immunotherapy to bring more options to our patients. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. We're not just fighting cancer anymore. We're outsmarting it. Visit cancercenter.com/outsmart to learn more.
Over 60 years ago, we started as an insurance company to put people first. Today, that mission has never been more important. Colonial, Atlantic Medical, Security in General, and NEBA are coming together and are now called CG Atlantic. Though our names have changed, our purpose hasn't. We're still the same people-first company we've always been. And we're here for you, stronger than ever. CG Atlantic.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
To myself, and we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Beautiful day in the 242. We've got good friends and guests joining us. A friend of the show, Dr. Susan Lockhart Williams, will be joining us. I'm excited to have her as she joins us as usual on the show. We are talking about the new measures, COVID-19, the effects of COVID-19 to us in terms of the economy, how it is affecting us, and the more that we learn about this, constantly it's changing, how it changes, and it's changes that affect us. But the health side of it, right? And so I'm always excited when we have the good doctor on, and she is going to be joining us in a quick second. But before we get to that, someone sent me something on the side, which I thought was interesting, and I want to make sure I read it out for you. Someone says, lockdowns are ineffective. A better solution is as follows. So someone wants to give us a better solution. Right? Stop all activities requiring removal of masks in public. Example, consumption of food, drinking beverages of any kind. Restaurants, clubs, and social gathering facilities should offer takeout or curbside services only. No establishment should allow a patron to remove their masks for any reason when in attendance at that establishment. They also added that once outside of one's home or one's vehicle, the mask must be adorned at all times, thereby rendering the wearer incapable of spreading the virus. All other measures, physical distancing, washing of hands, no large gatherings, should remain in effect. Application of these basic measures can alleviate the coronavirus. Well, this is something that has been said. That, to me, that's not new news. I think that's something that has been said for sure, that they have been advocating, the ministry has been advocating. But without further ado, let me bring in my special guest here. Doc, why did we just lose the camera for you? All right, Dr. Susan Williams Lockhart on the show with us. Are you able to hear us, Doc?
Yeah, I'm hearing you, but I don't know what happened to my camera and my mic. I may have to change my device. I was on my iPhone.
Okay, well, change your device real quick, and then you can come back on. Okay? All right, so we're going to get Doc on as soon as possible. So here are where the things is, right? And someone says that his cabinet is super spreaders, right? So we'll see how that goes, right? Someone says stopping COVID is like stopping the flu. It will not work. Someone else says Ministers' lockdown trend has been directed to long holiday weekends from the jump. You know, and then that's the thing. We have the question of with the challenges that we're facing. The holiday weekends have been a victim of, victim is a word that I shouldn't use lightly, because persons who have died from COVID-19 would consider themselves victims of COVID-19. But this has not been the normal summer, and it is a part of that process again, whether or not we can beat this. Are we able to beat COVID-19? Because you know what's coming. You know what's coming, right? What's coming will be the vaccine. And now we're going to be told we have to take this vaccine. And if we want to make sure our children go to school, we've got to take this rushed vaccine. And I wonder also when we talk about COVID-19, because that's the next thing is this vaccine that's coming out, which is being fostered and fueled by an election in the United States. And then we have the Chinese vaccine. And where is our research? Where is our research? Where are our researchers? Who's there as the double-blind tester, to ensure that we are safe as a people? Who's going to advocate for our safety? Or are we going to capitulate, right? Are we going to capitulate to this environment? Capitulate to the forces external? That's where the challenge comes in. Are we going to capitulate to the forces external when we talk about this vaccine? Because this vaccine agenda is really being fueled by politics and not necessarily health, where I would hope it's being fueled by health, but I'm very concerned with the political influences. I'm hoping that our government and our leaders are ones who are solely working for the Bahamian people, who are humble enough to admit where they've made error, who are truly seeking counsel, and who understand who understand that we are in a place where we don't need arrogance. We don't want propaganda. We don't want you to be in the House of Assembly worrying about, the other guys, when people are really needing sober leadership. That isn't just heavy-handed. We don't need you to be daddy and not a dad. No, we don't want you to be the baby daddy. We want you to be a father of the nation. We don't want you to be the fellow who happens to just, be the donator of life and not the one who is actually concerned with the ramifications of the pill, the side effects of the medicine that you're forcing us to take. A good father will say, well, these are the side effects of the medicine, of the pill that we are going to take. And these side effects are going to cause X, Y, and Z. And these causes are worth us being prepared for. If I know that there's a medication that I'm going to give my child, I know that medication, I need to know what are the effects of the causes and have on speed dial those who can help remedy those side effects. Sometimes the pill, the medicine may be worse than the disease or the side effects worse. Should you take it? Are there alternatives? Are we getting a second and a third opinion? COVID-19 and the treatment thereof for us in this country requires that sort of sober-mindedness, that sort of care and concern. Where I'm challenged is I feel like there's so many people in high places who don't understand what the brother and sister to the bottom of the totem pole is going through on a day-to-day basis. That not understanding means that when they react, all you see is a capitulant child rather than someone who just is unable to, you don't understand where they're coming from. You don't understand what is the forces that are making them say, you can't lock me down. When your bill is being paid, when you didn't lose your job, when you weren't worrying about how to go to the number house and spend $1 to hope you made $20, because that's your only figure of making ends meet. That is your only hope. And so we have to make sure that we're doing these things soberly. I understand now that we have to do this. But then what? What is the science again? That's all I'm beating is this dead horse. What is the science on this data? So we have with us, without further ado, we have the illustrious, the brilliant Dr. Susan Williams Lockhart joining us on the show. Dr. Lockhart, how are you today? Oh, now I can't hear you, Doc. What's going on? Okay, try it again. There you go.
You hearing now?
Yes, I can hear
you. All
you.
right, good, beautiful. Technology, all these other things, my technical help, that aka teenagers like, mommy, and they go on. The story. You're on your own, like Jack Bone, like what they call it, John Bone, you're on your own.
That's right.
Boy, listen. Seems as if, as the song says, there are more questions than answers. I remember that song, that goes, and I think that song is an apt description for where we find ourselves. And I will not lie to you, normally people tell me, they say, you always cheerful, you always good. Listen, this week was a challenge because some of the people that it was a challenge because some of the providers got ill. This is what happened. Some of my colleagues at Princess Margaret Hospital who I work with, who I talk to, they got sick, not only themselves, but the entire family. And, that is very, very worrying because now it makes it more, this is not something that is just, it's not something on the outside of you. That's a person that you really know acutely well. I'm talking to people who, they are well, but their families, be it their moms, their sisters, they need help. And the narrative that we are hearing, which is what we were saying before, is that if you have COVID and you have the symptoms, to sort of stop that spread in the community center setting, go to the hospital, go to the health center. That's where the COVID people are going to be localized. But what is happening now? The health centers, the hospitals, they are overrun. And so in some cases, there is not enough capacity for people who are ill. So people who are working in the community, and I have taken my services out of the hospital setting into the community, we have to see COVID patients, because and it hurts your heart because I had the case of a gentleman who called me. He had called another physician. He said, my wife isn't doing well. This isn't done. So I said, well, did they send him to the doctor? When I called the doctor said he's not seen anybody with flu-like symptoms.
Really?
And then I said, okay, yeah, because, you have to, that's a balance to benefit situation.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if you go see people who have COVID and then you may contract it yourself, then what happens? There's a risk. But I believe that when we worked in the hospital, and as one of my colleagues reminded me, he said, we worked in the infectious disease ward with Dr. Gomez. Dr. Gomez is the daddy of all infectious diseases in the Bahamas. And we went through TB, we went through AIDS. I worked the HIV epidemic as a junior doctor with him. And, those were some pretty scary times as well. And you had to really be on your ball with your universal precautions, when your PPE, making sure your body fluids did not mix with that of the patient. We got through it. And he said, so that gave me sort of like a boost. It says, okay, you got to go and do that.
Let me ask you, Dr. Williams Lockhart, you mentioned AIDS, the AIDS epidemic. What is the similarities between that and this?
Well, it's a virus that causes it. That's one thing about it. The other thing about it, which is so true, is that you can have the virus and not have any symptoms. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the reasons why spread is so ubiquitous and spread is so, it can be just a chain trigger effect. As people say, it goes, you have a case, you have another case, you have a cluster, and then boom, you have a surge that takes place. You see? Right. Because the way viruses spread, there's something called an R figure. An R figure tells you what the replication or reproductive rate of that virus is and how many people it can infect. So an R, that is, one tells that if I have one person is infected, I'm going to infect one person. I think with COVID, they were saying it's anything from 4 to 5 to 6.
Really?
So if you think about that, it is exponential spread, yes. Now, I would have to check my figures, but it certainly is more than one. And so this is what you need to be able to do. So like HIV, one of the things with COVID is that it comes through, it's from the body. So in COVID, it's carried on the aerosolized particles. CDC is now saying it's not just the big particles when you sneeze and you cough, but it is also in the microparticles, like when you talk or when you sing, it goes into the air and it stays around for a period of time, right? In HIV and AIDS, it is traveling through body fluid contact, right? So this is what you are dealing with. But also very importantly, with both of them, people can be ill and you don't know, right? People could be ill and you don't know that they have it. Somebody could be infected with HIV, but yet they have not yet. AIDS is when the person gets what we call, they look sick, they get the diarrhea, they get the skin changes, they get, know, until that time, you have some people who have HIV, especially if they're on medication, they look fine. They look better than me and you. And I'm happy for that. But this is.
Go ahead. No, finish that thought. This is.
So that's the reason why. So if you go and you have, you get exchange body fluids either through physical intimacy, sharing of needles, any other way like that, taking a blood transfusion from those people, you can contract AIDS. It's the same way. COVID is right now in our communities. It's in the gas station. It's in the pharmacy. It's in the shoe store. I know that when from the CMO's last report, John's Shoe Store and Darville's Packaging, which are two of the business places in Centerville, they were places where clusters, right? People go there. I got myself a nice pair of shoes from John's. The lady was nice. Nothing in there looked like COVID to me, But obviously, there's an issue with spread and how you do, how things are done. And I mean, no disrespect to them. I think that they're the places that are coming forward and saying, okay, let's test and let's see where we are being located.
Yeah.
So I give it to them.
Let me ask you something here, Doc. When we look at the announcement today, and the question of what we've been talking about a lot is the data, right? What leads us to make the decisions, or what leads the competent authority and the medical professionals to make the decisions that we're making? Where do you stand now? Because I agree. I think at this point that we have to have these lock-ins, but it's a weekend lockdown. And the weekend lockdown, I'm trying to figure out, how does this data work, and how are we talking about every weekend? Where do you stand? Where do the health professionals stand with these lockdowns?
Well, that's a very important point that you're talking about, because you asked about me, then you asked about the health professionals. I've been privileged to sit in a group with the Medical Association of the Bahamas, and I really want to commend the President, Dr. Marcus Cooper. I say poor Marcus because some days it's more like he's presiding over a circus with a ringmaster and a whip than because what is happening is opinions are very divergent. We are not one homogeneous body saying, okay, we agree with this, we agree with that. There have been calls for a position paper, especially as it relates to COVID and the treatment of it, and what measures do we think should be taken. But when you have a group of 95 to 150 extremely diverse practitioners from many different fields and specialities, you're going to have different opinions being put there. So when I speak, I say this is what I think, and I can say why I believe that is the way of it. I can tell you these are some of the practitioners that I like the way they talk, because I'm a science person. I grew up in the era of what we call evidence-based medicine, meaning to say that you couldn't just tell me a cure worked because that's what your Grammy used or that's what you like to use. You have to tell me, why does it work? What is the science behind what you are saying? And science is always sensible. And I always tell people that I say people may be crazy, but science always makes sense. God is the creator of science, and God is such a good, sensible, orderly entity. So we crazy, but the science always makes sense. And so I hear it because people, they make these memes and they make these cartoons saying, boy, COVID like a bandit, it's only moving around on a weekend from Friday 7 p.m. until Monday 5 o'clock. And then after that, it's going back into hiding during the week. No, COVID is not a bandit. But what I believe, and I mean, I didn't hear all of the Prime Minister's presentation, because some days, I will be honest with you, I go to information fatigue and I just say, I can look at that later. I can't deal with that now. I was in the middle of dealing with 2 patients today, and I had to focus. But what I believe it is that it's an attempt to sort of mitigate. This is what we are talking about. Mitigate the spread, because where we are dealing with right now is that our health facilities are being overrun. We are at capacity. There is no more space at the inn. All right. It's like Mother Hubbard went into the cupboard and the cupboard full of COVID patients, right?
And that's where we are.
That's where we are. I commented earlier last weekend, and I mean, the calls keep coming, and I try to help, and my husband tells me, you need to rest yourself and stuff. But if people call me, I got a heartbreaking call from a lady, and she said, look, my mom and my sister are home. They can't walk. My mother is having diarrhea. She's weak. I can't get in there to them. We've called the EMS, trying to get through it. Please, we can't go in there. They told us do not go in there to them. And I called the emergency room at Princess Margaret Hospital, and I want to commend very highly Dr. Nixon. I don't know who you are. I think we've spoken on the phone many times because I called them there, and they some know me, some don't, And she got on the ball. She got them to a center. She got them sorted. The lady called me back to tell me thank you. But that was heartbreaking to me, that someone is trying to get help for their family. We are capacity with our healthcare system.
So we're overrun.
Yeah, we basically, the curve has not been flattened. When you go, you want the curve either can go like a mountain peak coming down, or we can flatten the curve by going across nice and flat. Now, the same number of cases. So let's look at it this way. Let's say we had the same number of admissions from January over, like, say, April, May, and June. We had the same number. Let's say it was 100 admissions. We had 100 people, but they were spread out. Now, what is happening? We have 100 people in there in a week. We can't take that. We don't have the capacity for that. Because there was a point in time when the Minister of Health was saying, for instance, it was about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks somewhere, he was saying, I have 62 acute beds. I say, yeah, you have 62 acute beds. But look, it have 80 people in hospital. Where are the rest of them? Where are the rest of them? They're not in the tree. No, it means that they are in non-acute beds and maybe in places where you've had now to convert a space that may not have full isolation capacity. So because we do not build hospitals. I foresee that.
No, go ahead. Finish. No, finish it. We don't build hospitals.
So therefore, we lack capacity. Yeah. So the weekend lockdown, and the way I see it, is an attempt. It may not be perfect to mitigate spread. To say, okay, we need to keep the economy, and as failing as it is, as rough as the economy is, we need not to try to kill the sort of fledgling economy that is now trying to push its head back up again after having been taken the bruises. We know tourism is on the ropes, and I think what Mr. Dagala and they are trying to do is to not make it go down for the count and finally say, okay, I give up. Let COVID raise its hand in victory. They're trying to do that, but you have to also know you got to have alive people to run an economy. So we are not the only place. I think sometimes you sort of like sit down and get involved navel gazing. But if you look up and out a bit, you will see that in New York, they're considering locking down some boroughs this weekend. And New York went through hell in a handbasket. And I wouldn't want to be in New York. Spain, they locked down places last weekend. In the UK, they were considering locking down certain parts of the North UK as well. So we're not the only people being faced with this dichotomy and with these choices, none of which are good. So what I say is that I think where we are lapsing is not necessarily in the action, but in communicating why are we doing it. And people are saying, listen, man, we're not stupid. Tell us why you're doing what you're doing so that we could figure it out and say, okay, yeah, all right, we don't agree. It's not the best thing, but it's what we can do for right now. You see what I'm saying to you?
Yeah. No, and I agree completely. Okay, let me say some. So when we are, okay, and because I'm thinking out in my head, and my head is going too fast, so I'm trying to slow down. I have so many questions for you. When we look at this now, we are looking at a situation where, you and I agree that at this point, this is one of those options. We have to pull this card. Would you have recommended? Do you think that the weekend is enough as a physician, or was a week is better, or
what do you? What I would tell you was, wow, Dr. Miss Blackman, listen to me. When and as I said this again, so I can tell people this because when I'm on the chat with the physicians, I'm often the sort of big mouth, biggity one, and everybody is like, you talk. I say, well, I always talking, and I'm telling them, I say, listen, I'm a surgeon and I'm an ambulatory care specialist. That's what I train in. So my urgent care background gives me an ability to deal with emergencies of any type. As I said, I had a clinic in Andrews. I even stitched up a dog one time because the vet wasn't there, right? So I am very happy. You dying, you will not die if I could get to you because I will know to do what to do. But some of the background of COVID, it's an infectious disease. We have had no consensus in our community, and certainly at a leadership level as to, okay, what are you going to tell people they can do? So what has happened? People have gone home with vitamins, or people have gone home with nothing and just go home and take fluids. And when they're getting worse, because in some cases, surveillance and other places are overrun, therefore, the people are now falling through the cracks and they're calling around to try to get someone to help them. And then we are trying our best to help them as we can, because although I don't work in the public sector, I used to work there. And I feel that we have to, between the public and private sectors, keep the community going and keep the community healthy as well, because it affects all of us. So what I would say to you is that when I saw the figures last week, And I saw the press conference last week, and I said, okay, we reached over 4,000 figures. And the CMO was saying we have 1% of people infected, 900 healthcare workers infected, 300 of them are going back on. Some people I talk to tell me, no, those figures wrong, they're late. It's 15 to 20% of the population. It's much more than that. And nada. We're going on with it. So when I saw it, I was saying, and then I saw the Prime Minister saying he was going to meet with different bodies and then come with something. I said, okay, lockdown is coming. Everybody was sort of like on the ground saying, we're going to get locked down. I told my husband, I said, get up. We need to get in the grocery. We need to get the toilet paper and thing because, I don't want to be with a line of 70,000 people. I don't like doing that because to me, that, again, sort of goes against what you're doing it for, right? Because half my brethren, everybody touching up the convicts, touching up the tuna, touching up, you're pushing past the people there, and they don't like to stay in the line, nobody enforcing that at the end of the day. And I'm like, I ain't getting in there, man. I ain't getting in to catch COVID in the food store, That's my feeling. But so I think really and truly, because if you remember now, the last time the Prime Minister did this, and I'm not political, but I'm just saying, when I look at it from a thinking person's perspective, everybody came and said to him, oh Lord, you lock us down with 2 days, no time to get no water. Solomon's workers could go in the food store. We can't go in, we're here. It's not a good thing. Right. So I think this time this all I could think is that, and I don't sit at those tables. This is an attempt to somehow mitigate and say, all right, let's try. And it's a warning bell too, because I am still walking around. I don't know about you, but I'm still walking around in the middle of the city. I'm seeing people, they have on no mask.
Don't have
they
on a
go in and
mask.
drink.
They're not social distancing.
Right,
They go into Junkanoo, rush out.
This is what I'm saying. They go into funerals, right? So at the end of the time period, maybe this is him saying to people, look here, we're going to lose a little bit of liberty right now. We're going to lose a little bit of liberty. But if you don't behave yourself, we can lose all. We can lose all. We can lose all the liberty.
And
right?
So this is where we are today, Dr. Williams Lockhart, where we are today. And as a medical professional, and you sit here and not sit here, but you're on the front line, you're working with patients. You said something to me today, which was kind of scary, that there are persons who are getting COVID 2 and 3 times. Some people are getting it multiple times.
Yes, some people, some of the nurses I know for a fact got COVID once, and then they got COVID nice, right? Okay. And then they got it again, and then they, so this is the situation. And there are some people I know who they went into quarantine once, they went into quarantine twice. One of my friends told me, he said, I was in quarantine 3 times, man. He said, I'm a quarantine mafioso. I said, what is that? He said, every time I turn around, here I am back in quarantine again. I get, there's that song in every time I turn around, back in love again. He back in quarantine again every time he turn around, right? So this is the thing. So, and this happens when you have areas and places when there is a lot of COVID. That is what happens therein. When you have go ahead.
I wanted to ask a question, Dr. Lockhart, about is COVID airborne based on what you've
yes,
learned
it is.
about the virus?
It is airborne.
It is
airborne. It is. This is what, because the CDC is now saying, the CDC recommendation, this guidance was coming out last week. This guidance was coming off last week. And it was saying that before they were telling everybody that you were having, COVID was being born on the big particles. So when you sneeze, you cough, those big particles, which were being blocked out by your N95 mask and other things like that, they were what was coming through on COVID. But now they were saying it was the smaller aerosolized particles, smaller particles that you were having. When you talk, for instance, you sing, for instance, another example. So therefore, as a result of that, it's a respiratory illness. We understand and know that as well. It's a respiratory illness, right? We understand and know that as well. And so it is so therefore what they were saying, if someone is in the room, and especially if they don't have a mask on and they're breathing or doing other activities that generate aerosolized particles, then you can have COVID particles potentially in that room for another 2 to 3 to 4 hours, right? So I think
why workplaces are now showing to be the hotbed.
I think this is one of the reasons. And I think also people, because in one case, and I won't say where it happened, but in one case, there was a situation where someone had a meeting and the person could not move. They had a problem with their feet or something like that. So the person had a meeting with various people, but they didn't have on a mask. Some of the people didn't have on a mask. And as a result of that, when they got positive, then other people got positive as well too, right? So people have to really, it's not, because the measure will only work if you are consistent with it every single time, If you get tired and you take a break or you take a lapse in it, it's not going to happen. You have to be consistent every single time. I noted interest that in Japan, I'll send you that document. I was looking for it before. Japan realized, they said, it's almost as if they said, we have to coexist with this enemy. They said a vaccine effective is a year and a half off. We have to coexist with this COVID enemy. And so they made a decision, and they put out a sort of manifesto, as it were, where they said, these are the rules that we tell you to do, right? When you're eating, only keep your mouth closed when you're eating. When you flush in the toilet, cover the toilet over, which is a practical point. Yeah, because COVID can go through the digestive system and get into the waste of the toilet. So if you flush it, when you flush the toilet, tiny particles of water may come back up. So if you have COVID in that, it could splash up and there you go. It was saying, ride or walk to work, avoid public transportation, don't go out in groups of more than 5, don't talk, don't have any. Yeah, so this is what they were saying, this is what they were saying. Like, you ride in the jitney, you keep your mask on, because, listen, some things you just have to do. As you were saying, what happens to people in and Prospect Ridge is different to what happens to people on Padolia Street. And because those of us who are on Prospect Ridge or live in that area out west, we may be able to afford certain things. We may be able to afford certain accommodations. The people out in those areas are not able to do it. As you said, in the lower social economic areas, they are not able to do it. And so we have to consider what is an intervention that everyone can have and can be accommodated with. Do we need to set up these community guards the same way when we have political parties and we're going out campaigning, right? Do we need to set up a party of COVID and say, okay, we're going to go through every house in the neighborhood. What's your situation like? Do you have masks?
Exactly.
What's your ventilation? Do you have hand sanitizer, right? What's your water? For the weekend when you're supposed to be on quarantine lockdown, do you got food in there? Or are you going to have to go outside to try hustle something and put everybody, including yourself, at risk, Let's see what we have, right? So these are the things that we may have to do. Do we have, because simply put, if now we are saying, and CDC is suggesting perhaps that the COVID is in the air, so we now need to look at treating the air. So as you said, buildings, air conditioned places, because air condition just pulls air back in. If your filter is dirty or your filter is ineffective, let's say if COVID is there in the air, when it goes through the filter, then it's not going to effectively clear it. Maybe you need to put in a special type of HEPA filter. Some air conditioned returns have ultraviolet light in them, so that if there's any sort of pathogen in the air, it's going to go back and it's going to kill it, right? So a simple thing, maybe turn off the AC and open the windows up, let the breeze blow through. There's a reason why the old people had big verandas with these big windows and blowing through them, and they would put the houses in certain ways so that the fresh breeze, especially from the sea, we live on an island, could come through. Right? Because when the wind blows, it's blowing away with it all the different pathogens that you may have. Maybe all you can, go ahead.
No, finish your thought and then I'll ask.
So maybe all you can afford might be a fan. So okay, get a fan. Put a fan and open the windows, open the doors, right? When you finish in a meeting in an area, let's say it has to be in an air-conditioned room, spray the air, get a disinfectant, spray the air and leave it in the room for a couple of minutes, and then you do things. So, do things within reason that can keep yourself safe as well, and that's what I think. People, wherever they are, have to have some sort of strategy. You have to have a strategy. That's not the prime minister's job. Yes, they have to provide leadership at that level, but we have to have a strategy to keep myself safe, because before the prime minister or surveillance or whoever it is can get to me, I have to do what I can do to help myself, help my neighbor, help my community. So what I'm saying is that really and truly, we have to start taking it from a ground level, so to speak, a grassroots level, so to speak, at the end of the day, you see? So this is why we have to look out and do it. That's what I think.
Dr. Susan Williams Lockhart on the show with us on the Hit Back on Guardian 96.9 FM. Okay, Doc, here's the next question. Beach. So I'm hearing you talking about fresh air, and I finally got a chance to take the infant to the beach. It was a wonderful thing. I loved it. He fell asleep. It was great. I didn't even realize how much. I remember when you said this, and I smiled just thinking about your response now. But the beach should be, that wonderful sandy shore should be a wonderful place to go. To get that fresh air, to get that vitamin D that we talk about naturally. But we have to close it. Your thoughts on that?
Boy, I think when we are closing the beach, when people go to the beach, because I live across from Saunders Beach, and I love Saunders Beach, I love Goodman's Bay, I love out there's a place just by Blake Road, across from Blake Road, there's a little strip of the beach that looks like heaven. It's a little rough and rocky, but it is absolutely beautiful. I love it very well. And beach is great because you have the sunlight, as we said, you have the ultraviolet radiation, you have the negative ions, you have all that breeze, you have the salt water, which, is going to kill many germs and pathogens as well. The beach is not the issue though, because I've observed people's behavior on the beach. The issue is that when we sit down on the beach, people sit down and they say, I drink a cold one, boy. Let's take one for the road, one for the COVID, my star, one for the COVID. And then 6 of them sit down. What are you drinking, beers? You don't put on any mask? No. Hand sanitizer? No. One fella handing the beer from hand to hand. So, that's the situation, right? So what people do on the beach itself is not an issue. If people were disciplined and, keep themselves, and unfortunately in this case, Peter pays for Paul and Paul pays for all. So those people who don't follow it and decide to have a family party and barbecue, on the beach, right? They're making it bad for everyone. So when the police or the competent authorities pass and see that, they say, oh man, they're doing it again, right? So I don't think, and people don't say that it's difficult to quantify if there's spread taking place at the beach. People don't normally say, well, I went to the beach and this is what happened, But the beach is a place where, for Bahamians, it's a social place. We're going to gather. We are going to, have fun together. We are going to sit down together. We are not bubbling ourselves out by family groups. We are still cross-communicating, cross-contacting in many, many areas and many cases. You see what I'm saying to you? So this is the problem. So the beach is a wonderful idea if it would be used and utilized properly. But without that happening, therefore, the situation is that we have to, we're going to have to close it. Because it's not the beach, it's the water is great. It's what happens when you come out of the water.
And you hang up.
And they're hanging up and they're talking and everything else and the music playing and it's good. COVID spread is taking place at that point in time, so unfortunately.
Let me ask you something, Doc, before, I let you go. And by the way, folks just love you when you're on the show. And it's always a pleasure having you on the show. That's very important. And I'm thankful that you are on the show with us today. If you're tuning in, you're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian 96.9 FM, streaming live on YouTube and Facebook every day due to COVID, which is great because it made us more tech savvy. We have Dr. Susan Williams Lockhart joining us on the show. Definitely a great pleasure and guest, one of the favorite guests of The Hit Back. So, Doc, we are now looking at, this next, I don't even know if we're calling the next phase. I feel like we're still in, phase 2 or, the second wave of COVID. I remember Dr. Forbes said that the second wave never ended, that we were always in the second wave of COVID-19. We are now at a point where you're mentioning, listen, healthcare providers are getting it 2 and 3 times, or they're finding themselves in quarantine multiple times, that it is affecting the healthcare sector. If you were to say today, with regard to our providers, all of our healthcare providers, how many healthcare providers would you say right now are out of commission because of COVID?
Well, it's what I would tell you is that that's a difficult thing for me to estimate, but I would tell you in some departments, I know that, some people who spoke to me because I talked to them, I recommend them supplementation and vitamins. We might call and say, okay, what are you using, Susan? What do you have? And when I was talking to them, I was just so concerned because they were telling me in some cases, half the departments are out. This is at PMH, man.
Whoa. And
the people who are there are really taking on the charge to really provide the service to the rest of the people. And you find physicians, when we are not well, we still want to go because we are trained to go. Most of us are. You're trained to get up and you're trained to go. That's what you're trained to do. And you got to sit back. I know when it was for me and they had to put me in quarantine, 3 people had to talk to me to tell me, you got to stay in quarantine. I was like, no, man, I good. I could go. And then when I sat down and I thought about it, I said, something, what if I am ill and I give it to someone who's vulnerable? How will I live with myself after that, knowing that I've done harm when I'm supposed to do good? So in some cases, that's what's happening over there. So it's hard to really quantify what the numbers as such. I just go based on what the numbers I'm quoting to you are the numbers that were in the CMO's report. She said, thus far, 900 providers. So 600 of them, I take it, either are not well still or may still have it. She said 300 of them were ready to go back out to work. And I'm like, okay, we're putting them back out to work. Yeah, but then what is the condition? What is the condition that we're putting them back out to work in? And, you know, I would say on the main hand, I would tell the government, I don't know who does that, but every doctor who works in the emergency room, every nurse, every MT, listen to me, they should pay the people mortgage, pay the car loan, pay the children's school fee, pay
That's
something.
right.
Pay them one, decide it's going to be at 25,000 or 50,000 or 100,000, whatever it is. You know, give them that and just say, thank you for doing what you did. You know, I honestly could take, because when I went in, sometimes if I put a patient into the emergency room, I'm going to go, you know, I'm going to go just for the patient will see me. I had some old people, they tend to get scared. I had a little old lady who had to go in there to get a procedure done on her knee. And, you know, she's a little old lady, not from here. So I just went so she could see me. I said, Miss So-and-so, how are you? She said, Dr. Lockhart, what's happening? And then I would go, I would talk and say, listen, this lady is an easy one. Get her out. Family's ready to take her back as soon as you can. She's able to go out. And I'm always amazed. I talk to them. I said, how are you all working? Everybody in the banana suit in there. I call it their little nuke suit with their I-95, their shield. But the trolleys are still up to the desk. I said, what's up here? And then the place is still full. And they're like, well, this is the conditions. We are just working as hard as we can. But it is very difficult to sustain that. So the providers, I would tell you, you know, listen, the physicians, they are exhausted, you know. So even sometimes I say when we talk to each other and we get a little snippety, I say, okay, she tired, I tired. Maybe I just need to leave the chat and sit down and eat some barbecue chicken or whatever, right? Or piece of my mother-in-law go over duff and then come back to the chat after that. Not every night, though. You can't go over duff every night, you know.
No, because that'll lead to a comorbidity. So
add to your comorbidity, man. Look here. My niece made a guava tart, which looked like guava duff. I tell her, I say, girl, make those things smaller because you got to eat at least 2. So if you make it small, I can eat 2 and feel not so bad about it. But at the end of it, you know, we have to look at that. And I've been saying, you know, how do we increase capacity quickly? And again, I don't sit at those tables, and so I don't know all the ins and outs. But I'm saying, okay, there are ways to do it. I went back to New York. One of my very good friends, she and her husband probably got it when they were in New York, and I was sitting down watching. New York got the ship. They got the field hospital. You know, they did certain things. In China, when they had that thing, this is why everybody was hitting Wuhan.
They built a hospital in 14 days. 2 hospitals in 14 days.
I thought it was 10. I thought it was 10 days,
Might have been 10.
I thought it was 10 days. Those fellows, brothers, man, they put a hurting on that hospital, man.
Listen,
they built that hospital. You know, so what I'm saying is that you have to have capacity. We need a capacity immediately, and then you need to have a capacity midterm and the long term. What are you going to do? Because something like this may come back again. And
That's a great point.
I think no one will ever build a hospital again where rooms do not have the capacity to have negative pressure. They will build a room where there is, you know, negative pressure available at the point in time. You see. And how do you quickly expand? How do you quickly expand your personnel? Now, in many places, Cuba has been the place. Cuba went to Barbados. I think they went to Trinidad. They went to Jamaica. For whatever reason it was, Cuba did not come here. I don't know what the political or social.
What happened here?
I'm not sure, but I think they kind of ran out now. You know, I don't think you have any more. I think Cuba is all given out to the rest of the Caribbean.
And just let me just bring that up with Cuba. One of the things you notice that Cuba has this virus under control. And what do you see as their protocols? What's the difference between them and us?
I have not read on Cuba extensively, but I know one thing in Cuba now. Cuba is not necessarily very acknowledging of your rights now. When you had the HIV epidemic, when there was the HIV epidemic, they put everybody, they tested everyone. And if you were HIV, you went inside of the compound, man. You could do whatever you wanted in there. Run naked, have 6 babies, but you was doing it inside of there. You wasn't doing it out in the general population.
Yeah.
So I think it speaks to this. So I think there are some things that we need to deal with from my perspective. Again, and as I say, I speak generally. You know, first of all, I give a lot of credit and a lot of admiration to Dr. Charlie and Bonamy, who runs in the public and private sector, Dr. Nikia Forbes, those are our ID consultants, and the teams of people that work with them, people in the Ministry of Health. Yeah, they may not be talking straight, but listen, as I tell people, these guys don't sleep now. They are not, they got to be, this is their food, bread, butter, this is what they're doing. So cut a little slack. Yeah, they got to do it. They were elected. They need to communicate better, but cut a little slack. You know, give a little,
give me a little sauce. Someone asked a question.
Give them a little,
Kay says, do you recommend everyone getting the flu shot?
I think that is something you should. Well, it does, you know. Now,
I've had the flu shot and get the flu, dog. I mean, I don't know.
No, you will get it, you know, because remember when we were talking about what happens, right? We were talking about it. The flu is a virus. The virus mutates. The virus has on so it may have on a red jacket. It may have on a red jacket, and the body gets a antibody, which is a protein that kills that for the red jacket, right? Right. But the thing about it is this. That if the virus mutates, instead of a red jacket, puts on a yellow one. So it's like the body is looking for a man driving in a red Passat. He got a yellow Honda now. He gone in a yellow Honda. That's what the criminals do. Virus is a gangster, He's a real gangster. Must be Bahamian. Must be a Bahamian fellow.
Must be Bahamian.
But that's the thing. So when the flu vaccines are made based on the infection that was given the year before.
That time,
so
okay.
The vaccine that you are getting for 2020 is not the virus of 2020. It has to be what was present in 2019 as reported by the CDC. So because it takes a long time to produce, it takes about 9 months to a year to make enough vaccine for everyone. So you can't start making the vaccine for 2020 in 2020. You have to say, okay, 2019, we had influenza A, influenza B, influenza B1, H1N2, H3 and 5. We had A and B. We're going to put these 3 strains and these 2 strains. CDC and the other monitoring bodies looks at it. And that is the vaccine they gave you. Now, what happened now? So I put the vaccine for a red Passat and a yellow Honda. What happened now if you're driving in a black Infiniti? The vaccine say I can roll in a black Infiniti this year. Let me deal with them. Okay. So you will have some protection against the red Passat and the yellow Mazda, but you will not have protection against the black Infiniti. That is something the body has not seen before. Do we understand?
Interesting. Yes.
So this is what happens. So, but you will get, so instead of getting it 100%, you may get it 60%. You're still going to get some protection. So some protection is better than none. In my home, I get the vaccine, the flu shot, all my children do it. My husband from Ragged Island, he ain't taking that. No, sir. He gonna drink the Bush. He gonna drink the Cerecy. He's not taking them things. He said those people do things but his family is like that. The Lockhart's special now. The Lockhart's special. Ragged Island people, they are special. Right? So I always tell my husband, I say, I can't follow behind you all because I see you all. You just live until you're 99, 103.
You see them. You got to see them.
Right. You can't. So people have a different way. But because I work in an environment where I'm more likely to come into contact with people who have the flu, take the vaccine. The vaccine for the flu vaccine it's proven. It works okay. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. The COVID vaccine, there's still questions before they bring that to us. That's an RNA vaccine, which has not been tried before. They have to show and be able to say the safety profile has been this, and this. They had to stop the trials, I believe, and start it back, get more people, because they had some issues when they first started it. And because they are running to cure, they have not done all the animal trials that they normally should do, which is like they should do the trials in the animals, the rats, and then they should do it in non-human primates like the ferrets and the monkeys, and then they should challenge them with the virus, see what happens, do autopsies, see what happens, and then they can give it to humans in trials 1, 2, and 3. They are jumping quickly because of the need. So I think people have to look at that and ask pertinent questions as well before. You see?
I have so many questions for you, Doc. Let me see if I can get this question for you. How can we mitigate risk in the workplace?
The workplace, you have to act, there's a good video. I'm going to send you that Sawyer Boy. I love Tomiko, so I haven't had a chance to talk to him as yet. Sawyer Boy, he was wrapped up. The man started coughing on the phone and he dropped the phone and sprayed down with bleach. The fella gave him. You have to act a little bit like Sawyer Boy, but I thought he did that very well because you have to understand. So 2 things, the same thing. Your mask must be your constant companion, your mask. And everywhere you go, you sanitize your hands, right? Carry hand sanitizer with you. And every time you pass a hand sanitizing unit, take some, right? It's free. They ain't charging, not yet, right? Take some and sanitize your hands. When you get on to places, especially if you have things like your computer mice, surfaces that are touched all the time. We use common computers sometimes in the doctor's lounge. When I get there, I take a little damn cloth with some sanitizer. I wipe it down. I wipe down the area. That's what I'm going to do, that I'm going to use. I wipe down the arms of the chair, the backs of the chair, anywhere I'm going to touch, the surface in front of me. I take the time and I wipe it down.
So indoors, in those buildings, you're saying wear those masks. Keep your mask on, especially if you're at work.
No, you should. Every hour, 2 hours, take a max break, go outdoors and take the mask off where there's no one around, okay? But don't take it off indoors, because as we are seeing, the COVID is in the aerosols, it's in the air vector return. I don't know what the concentration of it is. What happened if the person who was in the room with me when I've had the COVID? So wear the mask, hand sanitize, social distance, very important. If you can't work from home, 6 and 7 people were in the office, should only have 3 or 2 in there right now. That's what should happen, right? Okay. And then what you should also have as well, open the windows up, man. I know there were some issues with some of the ministries. Some of those buildings have mold. They're old and the ductwork is inefficient. It's difficult to clean the ducts, you know. Go in there, open the windows up if you can, put a fan. If bare minimum wage, if you can't do that, when you get in the morning, spray some bleep or Pursue or whatever disinfectant you have, spray it in the air. You have a meeting, spray it in there, leave it.
Let me ask this last question here. What percentage of people who get COVID need to be hospitalized?
It depends upon, if we're looking at the figures that we have right now, out of 4,500 people, that's 4,000 people. You have 100, let's say, that have been hospitalized in our setting. So that's definitely, so what is that, 100 over 4,000, 1 over 40, right? So that is what, quarter, 0.25%. So, so 113, 4, so around those figures are what you have. So you're looking at maybe 1 or 2% of the people, if so many. But the problem with that is the people who are hospitalized, what is happening with them? What happens when you go in? First of all, it's why are you going into hospital? And I think that as people get ill and beds become less secure, do you push back how ill you have to be to get into the hospital setting itself at the end of the time, right? Okay. And so if you contract COVID, the first thing that you have to do, you suspect you have it. Some people don't have the money to take the test. I've had people call me and they say, what happened? My mouth dry, it tasting bad, I can't smell. I say, okay, you got COVID. You got COVID. That's what it is, right?
Let's just end that right there. You got COVID.
If you have it, could you get a test done? No, doc. I ain't got a change right now. And I can't go South Beach Clinic right now. So you have to then now, don't go out drinking with your boys for sympathy. No, you got to put yourself in the bedroom, use one bathroom, and quarantine yourself off. That's what you got to do. Take some zinc and some vitamin D and vitamin C.
You gotta go. You're listening to The Hit Back with Natasha Black. Everyone, have a great day. Thanks, Doc. See you then. I'm
bye,
so sorry.
honey.
We're going to talk again. We'll do this
We
again,
will,
everyone.
definitely. Okay, you take care.
Everyone,
Bye-bye.
we're out. We got to go. You're listening to The Hit Back with Natasha Black on Guardian 96.9 FM.
Is the worst crisis the Bahamas have faced in its modern history. We are living in an unprecedented global emergency. And today, Mr. Speaker, the current situation in New Providence and Abaco requires new restrictions in order to reduce infections and, most importantly, to save lives.
It was with those words that Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis made a case for the implementation of harsher restrictions for New Providence and Abaco. Both islands have been identified as COVID-19 hotspots by health officials. He told parliamentarians that Cabinet agreed to the multi-dimensional measures after a meeting with Pan American Health Organization and Ministry of Health officials. The PM said, acting on advice, a 24-hour weekend lockdown is back in effect starting Friday at 7 p.m.
During these weekend 24-hour curfews, only essential services, including the uniformed branches, customs and immigration departments, public health services, sanitation services, and essential utility services will be permitted to operate. Sea and airports will continue to operate, and there will be no interruption to flights. The only other movement beside essential service will be for 1 hour of worship services on Saturdays and Sundays between the hours of 7 a.m.